"I am not a cruel man," said Davos. "You have known me long. This is not my decree. It has always been so, since Aegon's day and before. Daemon Blackfire, the Brothers Tone, the Vulture King, Grand Maester Heath, traitors have always paid with their lives. Even Rhaenyra Targaryen, she was the daughter to one king, a mother to two more. Yet she died a traitor's death for trying to usurp her brother's crown. It is law. Law, Davos, not cruelty." Stannis Baratheon, The Davos Seaward, A Storm of Swords, Chapter 36, Davos 4. An issue I've seen debated a lot more than I used to since House of the Dragon first aired focuses on the issue of Rhaenyra's legitimacy as a queen, namely, that in law, in the history of Westeros, she is not recognised as a ruling queen, and not listed as so in the Targaryen line of succession. We can sit here and debate all day the merits of Rhaenyra's claim to the Iron Throne versus that of King Aegon II, and if she was or was not the true heir. But let's be honest, I've made loads of videos about that topic, and there are countless videos across YouTube discussing it. In this video, I want to take a look at the issue through a different lens, through the historical context of the books, and answer why in law Rhaenyra is not viewed as a ruling queen. I also want to tackle another divisive topic related to this, an argument many fans have put forward, being that her two sons via Daemon, Aegon III and Viserys II, propagated and were instrumental in the construction of the narrative their mother was a usurper in a both intentional and unintentional matter, just like the issue of Rhaenyra's regal status. The topic of who won the Dance of the Dragons is another huge tinderbox of an issue, with there being no real consensus among fans, or arguably even within the text itself. But if we are being honest with ourselves and put the politics of it aside for a moment, the truth is no one really won the Dance of the Dragons. House Targaryen was left broken, with only a handful of members left, the eldest being Baelor and Rhaenyra, whom were only 15 years old. The dragons were all but extinct, or would be soon enough. The very core of the power of House Targaryen was lost. The realm was in ruin, economically crippled, being ruled by a group of lords from both the Blacks and the Green factions in a regency council, while they waited for a boy king to come of age, with many of these men power hungry and not with the best interests of House Targaryen or the realm at heart. So it's kind of hard to argue anyone is the winner with this outcome. Two other popular ways I've seen the outcome described is that in fact the Blacks won the dance, given it was their bloodline who sat the Iron Throne after the dance until the downfall of House Targaryen under Aerys II. That Daenerys, and let's face it, Jon Snow, arguably two of the main characters from the main book series, are the end results of this bloodline. You also have the argument that the Greens technically won a Pyrrhic victory. Rhaenyra was dead. Aegon II was an undisputed king, even if House Targaryen was now crippled and broken, and Aegon II himself would soon be assassinated as well. But to me, it's much more than that, as I think you can make an argument that the Greens won on an ideological level, given that the Green faction's preferred method of succession, male preference primogeniture, is effectively what is used for the rest of the Targaryen era of Westeros. So here's the thing with the discourse around the Dance of the Dragons, and something a lot of people seem to forget, that it is possible for two opposite viewpoints to both be true at the same time. Okay, so why does the concept of the outcome of the Dance of the Dragons have such a huge impact on why Rhaenyra is historically not viewed as a ruling queen? Well, to make matters even more complicated, technically, given the Blacks and the Greens' chosen method of succession, King Aegon III would have likely been heir regardless of who actually won the conflict. From a Black point of view, Aegon III is Rhaenyra's eldest living child, and from a Green point of view, Aegon III is Aegon II's eldest male relative, thus his heir. So Aegon III was always going to be heir in this situation regardless. Now, there are two reasons this information is important to the question at hand. The strictly true answer to why Rhaenyra is not listed as an official queen comes down to the age-old concept of history being written by the victors. Let ravens fly that the realm may know the pretender is dead, and their true king has come home to reclaim his father's throne. Aegon II, after the death of Rhaenyra Targaryen. Fire and blood. The dying of the dragons. the short, sad reign of Aegon II. While the outcome of the Dance of the Dragons in the end can be debated, what you cannot deny is that Aegon II did outlive Rhaenyra, and in doing so, as we see in The Princess and the Queen, decrees that Rhaenyra was never a queen, insisting that henceforth in all chronicles and court records that Rhaenyra be referred to as only a princess, the title of queen only being reserved for his mother, Alicent, and his late wife and sister, Helaena, what he described as the true queens. Now, if you subscribe to the idea that the king's word is law, and therefore Viserys I had every right to name his own heir in Rhaenyra, then at the same time, Aegon II being recognised as a legitimate king makes his decree regarding Rhaenyra the law, and thus why we have this recorded version of history that is commonly subscribed to by most of the characters after the Dance of the Dragons and into the main book series. The irony of King Aegon II is his own claim to the throne is via male primogeniture, yet, just like his own father, Viserys, he was willing to contradict the succession method that allowed him to claim the throne in the first place by trying to name his daughter heir over Aegon III, who in Aegon II's preferred succession method is his heir. It takes Corlys Velaryon's pressure and willingness to compromise a peaceful solution that stabilises the situation, at the same time inadvertently advocating for male preference primogeniture. Thus, from a historical context, Aegon III's claim to the throne does not in fact come from his mother like many fans initially believe, but rather via his father, Daemon Targaryen, with Aegon III being the eldest living male descendant of King Jaehaerys I left alive. Hence, why you can argue the Green faction ideologically won the dance, while the Blacks can claim victory via Rhaenyra's bloodline, even though Aegon III is ruling via Daemon's claim to the throne. So we've now established why, rightly or wrongly, Rhaenyra is not listed as a queen, and we've laid out the political situation at the end of the Dance of the Dragons in terms of the succession. So how does this help answer the second part of this question? Why did Rhaenyra's two surviving sons via Daemon not ensure their mother's reign was recorded as that in the history books? While Rhaenyra may not have been an official Targaryen queen of Westeros, for a large section of the realm, she was. The Blacks did crown her, and she did rule as a queen for a short period of time. For example, Robb Stark is still seen as a king, even though he was too ultimately defeated and his kingship disputed by the victors. So why is this not the case for Rhaenyra, and her own bloodline were officially kings? Why did they not try and ensure their mother's legacy as a queen? The answer differs depending on if we are talking about King Aegon III or King Viserys II. Orwell was wont to call his grace calm and self-possessed. I say the boy is dead inside. He walks the halls of the Red Keep like a ghost. Munkin to the conclave of maesters, fire and blood under the regents, the hooded hand. It must be recalled that in the case of King Aegon III, he was a child when he became king, and was under the control of a regency council for 5 years while he came of age. In effect, Aegon had very little power during that time, especially when his Regency Council and Small Council were made up of members of both the Blacks and the Green factions. If King Aegon III had tried to make a decree legitimising his mother's reign, it's incredibly likely that he gets blocked by his councils, who at this time would not want to risk the fragile peace forged during the wake of the dance. By the time King Aegon III himself came of age, it's clear that he likely saw the harsh truth of the matter as well. We must also acknowledge the trauma Aegon was carrying. The Dance of the Dragons mentally broke him. The boy saw his mother devoured by a dragon before his eyes. There is a very good reason he became known as the Dragonbane. It's not unreasonable to imagine Aegon himself did not desire to dig up the horrors of his childhood, and would rather have just kept the peace as best he could, rather than reopening old wounds. King Aegon III is kind of in a catch-22 situation when it comes to his own claim as well. If he accepts the idea that he was King Aegon II's heir, and thus his claim is coming from male primogeniture via Daemon, he has to accept the fact that under his own succession method, his mother is not a queen. If Aegon III makes his own decree counteracting the decree of King Aegon II, ensuring Rhaenyra is never historically documented as a queen, this opens up a whole new set of issues for his own claim that I've not seen anyone really talk about. The king's word is the king's word. The king's will is the king's will. The king's word is law. Thus, why from a black point of view, Viserys is able to name his own heir in Rhaenyra rather than follow male primogeniture. King Aegon II was a king, thus his word is also law. Thus his decrees about Rhaenyra is also law. If King Aegon III undid Aegon II's decree with his own decree legitimizing his mother's claim, it brings into question the idea that a new king's decree can overrule the kings of the past, and that certainly would have an impact. While Aegon could legitimize his mother by doing this, you open up the very concept of king's decrees and his word being law to scrutiny, possibly opening Viserys' decree naming Rhaenyra to questions regarding its own legitimacy. It's a super complex issue and opens up a political can of worms with no clear defined answer that would ensure an outcome that would benefit King Aegon III or Rhaenyra's claim to the throne. Thus why I can see a situation where the mentally broken and troubled King Aegon III just left the matter be. Viserys might have only reigned a year, but he ruled for 15, while Daeron warred and Baelor prayed. Tyrion Lannister to Oberyn Martell. A Storm of Swords Chapter 59, Sansa 4. When it comes to Viserys II, well, the reason he never acknowledges his mother's own claim and never attempted to legitimize it when he became king is because in doing so he would directly be contradicting his own claim to the throne. Viserys II became king when his brother King Aegon III's last son, King Baelor the Blessed, died without children in 171 AC. Viserys' claim to the throne comes via male preference primogeniture, the method that favoured Aegon II's claim over Rhaenyra. While King Aegon III's two sons, Daeron and Baelor, died without children, King Aegon still had 3 living daughters in Daena, Rhaena and Elena. Thus, King Viserys II acknowledging his mother as a queen directly brings his own claim to the throne into question. Even as events played out, there was a brief suggestion of Daena's claim to the throne after Baelor's death. Viserys then acknowledging his own mother's reign really would light that tinderbox and maybe lead to a succession dispute, or perhaps create a banner for his foes to rally to in Daena. And from what we do know of Daena as a character, if there was an opening for her to push her own claim to the throne, I can't help but think she might do it. King Viserys II is known as a very intelligent man and a good king, so in all likelihood, he saw the reality of the situation for what it was. Even if he wanted to honour his mother's memory, he practically couldn't. Also, bear this in mind, Daena, being Daemon Blackfire's mother, having a claim to the throne would certainly have made the Blackfire rebellions even more complicated than they already are. I think the thing that's really important to remember is that while Rhaenyra is not a recognised queen of Westeros, that doesn't weaken or void the legitimate parts of her claim. She was King Viserys' named heir at a time when there was not a formalised succession law apart from hundreds of years of precedent. Both King Aegon II and Rhaenyra had reasonably legitimate claims to the throne, which is why a conflict exists in the first place. Like I pointed out, it is possible for two conflicting things to both be true at the same time, and when you break down the writing and world building of George R.R. Martin, you very much can see he has mastered that balance. In terms of King Aegon III and Viserys II's aversion to legitimizing their mother's reign, in its most simple form, even if they wanted to, it would have been politically impossible for them to do so without a huge risk of it backfiring, if not for them personally, for their descendants in the future. But the reality is, we can only really speculate about the motivations of King Aegon III and Viserys II, due to the fact that Fire and Blood ends when Aegon III comes of age. Thus the only information we have about both their reigns comes from the world of Ice and Fire, which while it does provide good broad strokes information, lacks the detail of Fire and Blood. There are huge plot threads in Fire and Blood that are left unresolved in the world of Ice and Fire, and that will remain so unless one day we do get Fire and Blood Part 2 as George R. R. Martin plans. It is possible he might address this question in that book, or there may be evidence or suggestions as to why Aegon and Viserys acted the way they did towards their mother's legacy. At the end of the day, if you want my honest, quick take about why Rhaenyra is not recognised as queen, it's this. The Dance of the Dragons is a conflict no one really won. At its end, lords such as Corlys Velaryon, Cregan Stark, Tyrion Lannister just wanted it over with. The Dance of the Dragons ended with some level of compromise from the remaining supporters of the Greens and the Blacks, and Rhaenyra's legacy as an apparent Queen of Westeros is one of these compromises.